Oh shit, we really need to sit down and have a serious, no filter talk about what the hell is going on in the world right now because the official narrative is just straight up falling apart. I mean, honestly, you turn on the news, you see the headlines about routine operations, and it is all designed to make you look everywhere except at the burning buildings. It is enough to make anyone want to scream because everywhere you look there is chaos. A drone strike hitting the Barakah nuclear power plant, oil prices spiking as the Strait of Hormuz remains a massive point of failure, and the powers that be are doing everything, and I mean everything, to keep you from connecting the dots. But before you freeze up and let your portfolio get slaughtered by the panic, let me pull back the curtain on what is really happening behind the scenes. I have been digging into the data, the intelligence, and the absolute mess of global policies, and I am going to give it to you straight because you deserve the truth, not some polished corporate funded fluff piece. Let us get into the absolute grit of it. You know that feeling when you are walking into a room and you know something is wrong, but everyone else is acting like everything is totally fine. That is where we are with the global economy and these geopolitical powder kegs. We are looking at a drone strike hitting an electrical generator at the Barakah nuclear facility in Abu Dhabi, and the authorities are trying to bury the impact, saying everything is operating as normal. Do you know how many of these facilities have been targeted or pressured since late 2023? It's a pattern, man. The global energy infrastructure is being tested to the point of failure, and the mainstream media is too busy showing you memes of politicians or talking about future trade boards to even mention the real danger to the global supply chain. This is what I call a weapon of mass distraction. You have the leadership in this country actively trying to distract you from the fact that we are in a war that they told us was finished. Look at the Strait of Hormuz, that one little bottleneck that controls the world's fuel. And they are telling us that the agriculture clock is ticking and we need to reopen the strait. You don't just have an entire international shipping lane hijacked unless the situation has spiraled completely out of control. And the market? Oh man, the market is finally starting to wake up and smell the gunpowder. When you see the US 10-year Treasury yield hitting 4.63% and mortgage rates creeping up towards 7%, you need to realize that the system is groaning under the weight of this instability. We are seeing numbers worse than what we dealt with during the Great Recession, and the only response from the top is more manipulation, more false pretext, and more smoke and mirrors. They are even floating this ridiculous fabricated story about Cuba threatening Florida with 300 drones just to create a pretext for some new military move. And the best part, the local Florida sheriffs, the guys who would actually know if there was a threat, have absolutely no idea what the feds are talking about. It is all a game, it is all a script, and you are the one left holding the bag if you don't wake up to it. Think about the psychological toll this takes on the average person. They want you scared, they want you paralyzed, and they want you to keep trusting the same people who are setting the fires. But look at the reality. We are seeing critical energy infrastructure from Venezuela to the Middle East, spontaneously combusting or catching fire at a rate that is statistically impossible to just call an accident. This is a pattern. This is the result of a global conflict that has spilled out into the energy markets. And that is going to hit your wallet harder than anything else. You have to realize that this volatility is the price of admission for living in this era. And if you can handle the swing, you shouldn't. Be in the game without a shield. I have been telling you over and over, stop looking at the shiny objects, stop looking at the memes, and start looking at the logistics. Look at where the capital is flowing. Look at how the interest rates are being manipulated to keep the illusion of stability alive while the debt to GDP ratio continues to balloon out of control. We have trillions of dollars in debt that is never going to be paid back, and the interest payments alone are sucking the lifeblood out of the economy. It is like trying to run a marathon while carrying a lead-filled bag of rocks on your back. Eventually, the weight is going to break the structure. I am looking at these moves in Iran, the pressure being put on the Gulf allies to deepen their involvement, and I am seeing a calculated effort to force a conflict that they think they can control. But history tells us that conflicts rarely go the way the strategists think they will. So, what do? You build your defense, you stop over, leveraging yourself on companies that depend on this unstable, government-manipulated system. You get into real tangible assets that don't care about a press release from the White House or a Board of Trade announcement. I am personally keeping my eyes on my long-term positions, and I'm not letting the daily noise, the political posturing, the threats of invasions that don't exist, the fake news about deals, scare me out of my conviction. When you see the U.S. attempting to create a Board of Trade to manipulate the markets because their initial plans failed, you know the desperation is at an all-time high. They are trying to put a bandage on a gunshot wound, and it's not going to hold. We are witnessing the unraveling of a post-war consensus that has held for decades, and it's happening in real time. The fact that major energy incidents are becoming a regular occurrence should tell you everything you need to know about how fragile the global supply chain really is. And don't even get me started on the hypocrisy. They put a blockade on a nation nation like Cuba, starving their people. But they let Russian ships break through because the geopolitical calculus is more important than the human cost. It is ugly, it is ruthless, and it is the world we are living in right now. You have to be smarter than the headlines. You have to look at the regional media, the international reports, and the intelligence on the ground, not just the talking points fed to you by the regime's favorite media outlets. I am telling you this because I want you to be the one who stands tall when the dust finally settles. It is not about being a doomsday prepper, it is about being a realist. It is about understanding that when the arsonist is in the White House, you don't trust them with your insurance policy. You make sure you have your own, so stay sharp, keep your head on a swivel, and don't let the fearmongers take your conviction. I am here to make sure you have the tools to survive and thrive no matter how bad the headlines get. It's a long, bumpy road ahead, but we re-walking it with a plan. And that makes all the difference in the world. We're going to keep digging into the macros, the real numbers, and the strategies that actually matter for your financial survival. Make sure you stay locked in, hit that subscribe button, and let us keep growing this network so we can keep exposing the truth. Take care of yourselves, stay disciplined, and I will catch you in the next one. You know, looking back at where we were just a few months ago, the shift is staggering. We went from talking about potential growth to talking about potential collapse. All while the people in power pretend that everything is just a short-term hiccup. But when you look at the 30-year Treasury yield sitting at over 5%, you know that the big money is pricing in something much worse than a hiccup. They are pricing in a systemic failure, and that's exactly why the moves I've been talking about, loading up on real assets, diversifying out of the dollar-denominated mess, and staying out of the reach of the central bank's levers, are not just suggestions anymore. They are necessities. The consumer is getting crushed, the middle class is being evaporated by inflation that nobody is actually fighting, and the AI hype train is just a distraction from the fact that we aren't producing the basics we need to keep the lights on. Think about the energy situation. Again, you have the foreign secretary talking about a global food crisis because one country is blocking a shipping lane. That is how fragile our system is. One lane, one choke point, and the whole house of cards starts to wobble. If you think that it's not going to hit your grocery bill or your heating costs in the next 6 months, you are not paying attention, but you re-listening to this, so you already one step ahead of the herd. You not the one who's going to be blindsided. When the next unforeseen event drops, you the one who is preparing. And that is the only way you survive this, by being prepared, by staying liquid, and by keeping your eyes on the long-term cycle instead of the daily drama. Gareth Soloway and I talked about the 2029 to 2030 cycle, and honestly, the more I look at the news, the more I think we are just getting a preview of that final act. The chaos in the Middle East, the tension in the Strait, the collapse of trust in institutions, it's all part of the same story. So when I tell you to be smart, I mean it. Follow the crowd into the meat grinder. Build your own fortress, brick by brick, asset by asset. Be the one waiting for the government to save you, because they are the ones who put you in this position in the first place. It's a tough message. I know. It's not the happy Monday talk you get from the mainstream guys, but I am not here to make you feel comfortable. I am here to make you feel prepared. Because at the end of the day, your future is in your hands, not the hands of some politician in Washington or a bureaucrat in Geneva. Let's keep stacking. Let's keep learning. And let us stay ahead of the game. Peace.